Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Ethics Group 10, Chapters 36 through 38. Group members Logan Alexander and James Hemphill. Life as a Story, Chapter 36. Kahneman recalls Verdi's opera La Traviata, a story about two star-crossed lovers forced to marry another. Convinced by the father of the young man to end the relationship in order to save family's honor, she pretends to reject the man she adores. She soon relapses into consumption. In the final act, she lies dying, surrounded by a few friends. Her beloved has been notified and is rushing to meet her. Hearing the news, she is transformed to hope and joy, but is deteriorating quickly. Kahneman recalls, no matter how many times you have seen the opera, you are gripped by the tension and fear of the moment. Will the young lover arrive in time? He does, of course, and after 10 minutes of glorious music, she dies. Why do we care so much about those last 10 minutes? The emotion he felt about the lovers' reunion would not have changed if he would have learned they actually had a week together instead of 10 minutes. Duration neglect is normal in a story, and the ending often defines the character. This is how the remembering self works. It composes stories and keeps them for future reference. Duration neglect is the psychological observation that people's judgments of unpleasantness or painful experiences depend very little on the duration of those experiences. Duration neglect and peak end rule. The peak end rule is a psychological heuristic in which people judge an experience largely based on how they felt at its peak and at its end, rather than based on the total sum or average of every moment of the experience. The effect occurs regardless of whether the experience is pleasant or unpleasant. The psychologist Ed Diener and his students wondered whether the duration neglect and end peak rule would govern evaluations our entire lives. They created a scenario in which a woman was never married, with no children, had died instantaneously in an automobile accident. In one version, she was extremely happy throughout her life, which lasted either 30 or 60 years, enjoying her work, taking vacations, spending time with her friends, and her hobbies. Another version added 5 extra years to her lives. The extra years were described as pleasant, but less so than before. The results. Participants were asked 2 questions. Taking her life as a whole, how desirable would you think her life was? How much total happiness or unhappiness would you say she experienced in her life? The results provided evidence of both duration neglect and peak end effect. Doubling the duration of her life had no effect on the desirability of her life, or on judgments of the total happiness she experienced. Experienced Well-Being, Chapter 37. All things considered, how satisfied are you with your life as a whole these days? As the remembering self had not proven to be a good witness in his experiments, he focused on the well-being of the experiencing self. Kahneman proposed it made sense to say that Helen was happy in the month of March if she spent most of her time engaged in activities that she would rather continue than stop, and also spent little time in situations she wished to escape. And this is important because life is short, and not to mention in a neutral state, he would not care either way. There are many different experiences we would rather continue than stop, including both mental and physical pleasures. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi calls flow a state that some artists experience in their creative moments and that many other people achieve when enthralled by a film, a book, a crossword puzzle. Interruptions are not welcome in these situations. Day Reconstruction Method. Kahneman had assembled a dream team to develop a measure of well-being of the experiencing self. A continuous record of experience was impossible because a person could not live normally while constantly reporting their experiences. Experience sampling was a known method, but was expensive and burdensome, so they created DRM, of which could approximate the results of the experience sampling and provide additional information about the way people spend their time. They first asked participants to relive the previous day in detail, breaking it up into episodes like scenes on a film, and rated the various incidents and the participant was most engaged. Measurements of the experience well-being are now routinely used in national surveys and the Gallup World Poll. Thinking about Life, Chapter 38. Kahneman's graph of reliability invokes nervous laughter from audiences, and nervousness is easy to understand. After all, people who decide to get married do so either because they expect it will make them happier or because they hope making a tie permanent will maintain the present state of bliss. The startling news in Figure 16 is the steep decline in the graph. The graph is commonly interpreted as tracing a process of adaptation in which the early joys of marriage quickly disappear as the experience becomes routine. The focusing illusion. We can infer from the speed at which people respond to questions about their lives and from the effects of the current mood or their responses that they do not engage in careful examination when they evaluate their life. They must be using heuristics, which are examples of both substitution and the acronym WYSIATI. Are you with life as a whole? How happy are you these days? To a person becoming paraplegic after a car wreck. Eventually, after the shock of it all wears down, they can once again be happy. Adaptation to the new situation, whether good or bad, consists in large part of thinking less and less about it. In that sense, most long-term circumstances of life, including paraplegia and marriage, are part-time states that one inhabits only when thinking less about it. Time and time again, the mistake people make in the focusing illusion involves the attention to select moments and neglect of what happens at other times. The mind is good with stories, but it does not appear to be well designed for processing time. During the last 10 years, we have learned many new facts about happiness, but we have also learned that the word happiness does not have a simple meaning and should not be used as it does. Sometimes scientific progress leaves us more puzzled than we were before.